At SU, we focus on 8 different technology areas. These are neuroscience, biotech, robotics, energy, computing, AI, medicine, and nanotech. So these are all information technologies, and they're all growing exponentially. And we think that these are going to be the biggest drivers of change going forward. So at SU, we don't just focus on one particular technology, though. We focus on all 8 of these and really thinking about convergence, how these different technologies come together in unexpected ways. So these are where the biggest breakthroughs are taking place. It's the combination of something like AI and robotics and synthetic biology that might create some really unexpected breakthrough. I mentioned earlier some of the amazing things that are happening in the world. And some of these things may have caught you off guard, and they may have been surprising to you. And I think one of the key things to ask yourself is, why are some of the things surprising to us? Why are they catching us off guard? And to understand that, you really need to understand linear versus exponential growth. So Ray's law of accelerating returns, I mentioned it in the opening, it's really the foundation for our curriculum at Singularity University. And it's become the basis for what we call exponential thinking. But what does exponential growth mean? You hear the term a lot. It basically means something growing at a set period of time in a standard way. So it might be something doubling every second. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Could be something tripling every second, 1, 3, 9, 27. That's really all it means. A lot of what we focus on is the price performance of computing growing exponentially and what that means. But exponential thinking does not come naturally to us. Our brains were designed for a very different time in the world, really, and a time when you were focused on what was happening around you. It was about survival, right, and not optimized for a period of going through really profound and rapid change. So your world back there was very linear and very local. Things moved slowly. You had no idea what was happening in another state, another country, across an ocean. Today, the world is very much global and exponential, right? Something happens on the other side of the world. You hear about it in minutes. Computers hear about it in seconds or milliseconds. I want to take you through a couple examples of exponential growth. So if you look at this chart, imagine that this is a room that's filling up with water. It starts off with 1 gallon. Every minute, it doubles exponentially. So you'll see, it seems in these early days that almost nothing is happening, right? It's barely moving the needle. And then all of a sudden, you'll start to see at around the 25th step, we're still 97% free, only 3% water in the room. And then all of a sudden, things start to change really dramatically. With 1 step to go, the room is still half full. So what's so kind of catches you off guard is basically it's this last part of the hockey stick, right? It's when this doubling is taking place and you're seeing new technologies and new things appearing because these technology curves are changing so rapidly. So every 12 months or 24 months, the price performance is doubling. And that's pretty extraordinary, and that's really what's behind driving so much of our life today and this rapid change. So this is a chart from Ray's book, The Singularity is Near, The Law of Accelerating Returns. And you can see from this chart that exponential growth of computing goes back all the way to the 1890s with electromechanical calculators that were used in the 1890 and 1900 census. And this is really, it basically shows 5 distinct paradigms. Moore's law is the most recent one. And what Ray discovered is that over the last 100+ years, you can see that this curve is very smooth and very predictable and always up to the right. So he saw that basically this fundamental measure of information technology, calculations per second per dollar, basically the price performance of computing, follows this very smooth trajectory. And once you understood that, you could think about what the world, have a better understanding of what the world looks like and where it was going. And so obviously that chart is made up of a lot of different technologies. Life today is made up of a lot of different technologies. We know technologies have lifespans, finite lifespans. There's kind of an S-curve to them. And what's interesting is kind of as one technology comes on the market and starts to peter off, you always have another technology that comes on. And so it's really one technology on top of another technology that creates this very smooth curve. And so we don't know what the next paradigm of computing is going to be, right? It might be quantum computing, it could be something else. But with a chart like this, we can have a lot of confidence that there is going to be a sixth paradigm, and that the chart is going to continue to go up and to the right. And because you know that, you can start to make some real predictions. And it enables someone like Ray to say, in 2030, we're going to have a computer for $1,000 that's going to be as powerful as a human mind. And in 2050, we're going to have a $1,000 computer that's going to be as powerful as all human minds. And so just think about that. I mean, can you imagine having in your phone or on your desktop a computer that's as powerful as the collective brain power of the entire world? Like, it's hard to get your head around, but that is what's coming. That's what's going to happen. So I want to give you a couple examples of exponential growth in real life. Let's look at computer storage. So in 1956, 5 megabytes of storage cost you $120,000. In 2005, you could get 128 megabytes for $99. And today, you can get 128 gigabytes for under $33. So in the last 11 years, that's a 3,000-time price performance improvement and a 90 million price performance over the last 60 years. Let's look at integrated circuits. So the Intel 4004 chip, it contains 2,300 transistors, each measuring a few micrometers across. Today, the most advanced silicon chips contain billions of transistors in them. So the Intel Broadwell Core, 14.4 14 nanometer transistors in there. So it's almost a 621 billion times improvement in 46 years. It's staggering growth to think about. Let's look at the digital camera. This is Stephen Sasson. He's the inventor of the digital camera. Back in 1976, this was the first camera that was created. Weighed almost 4 pounds, cost about $10,000. You got a 0.01 megapixel image from it. It was such a joke that basically all the executives at Kodak, no one could imagine that this would become a real thing and become a real threat to their business. 2017, 16 megapixels or better, costs weighs half a gram and under $10. So 4.7 billion times improvement in that time period. So this is the power of exponentials, making things cheaper, more powerful, smaller. So, but because we don't actually think exponentially, right, these are challenging times for businesses. There's a lot of change going on right now. And if you were a company back in the 1920s that was lucky enough to make it to the S&P 500, you had almost a 70-year reign. So 7 years of being listed and hopefully good times. And today, that's down to about 15 years, and it's dropping pretty quickly. If you look at the Fortune 500, it's predicted that 40% of those companies are no longer going to exist in 10 years. Like, think about that in terms of creation and destruction. Lots and lots of these old incumbent companies basically are not reacting to change quickly enough, and they're dying. And so it's creating all sorts of opportunity for new companies to be created and for large companies that are willing to really innovate to really thrive. So we want to hopefully have you look at a chart like this, though, and not be scared by it, but really feel like there's some great opportunity here. Hopefully to be encouraged to realize that at the end of these 3 days, you're going to have some insight that not a lot of other people have. And by having that, you can start to think about your business and the world in a different way and position yourself to thrive, hopefully, in that environment. So I think to have that positive mindset, I want to talk to you a little bit about abundance. And what is an abundant mindset? So the underlying principle here is really that technology is a force which takes something that is scarce and makes it abundant. So at SU, Peter has created a framework for how we think about the natural kind of flow and life of technology. He calls it his 6 Ds, so the path that something takes on its way to becoming abundant. So initially, something becomes digitized. It becomes an information technology. In these early days, it's deceptive. People are caught off guard by it. They like the digital camera. They kind of poo-poo its capabilities and don't really take it seriously. Then all of a sudden, it starts to become disruptive. You start to see things happening that are catching people off guard. Some of the things you're seeing now with AI or with robotics, I would put in the disruptive category. Things then start to dematerialize, so they become smaller, or what might have been many different products might be condensed into one. If you think about, like, for example, our cell phones and all the capabilities that those have. Things become demonetized. So things that used to cost a lot all of a sudden start to become a lot less expensive and sometimes even free. Again, with your cell phone, think about all the things that are part of that you now get for free, that used to be independent, separate businesses for people a while ago. And then ultimately, because of all these things, the technology becomes democratized. So it becomes freely available for everyone. And because of abundance, we're really seeing some amazing things happen in the world. And I mentioned this earlier. I mean, this really is an incredibly exciting time to be alive. It's the end of poverty is coming. People living on less than $1.25 or living on $1.25 or less a day, that has just plummeted, and it's dropping precipitously further. So the waning of war. This is the safest time to be alive by far. Life expectancy is continuing to rise. There's little blips here and there, but it's definitely going in a positive direction globally, and we think there's going to be some really significant breakthroughs in the coming years. If you look at automobile and airline fatality rates, those have dropped precipitously. And as you can imagine, with autonomous vehicles coming online over the next kind of 5 or 10 years, that's 1 to 2 million lives every year that could be saved as a result of that. And one of the most exciting elements is kind of this new generation of folks who are going to be coming onto the internet for the first time. So over 3 billion people in the next 10 years are going to get internet access for the first time. And you just think about the amazing minds that are out there who are now going to have access to the world's information, who are now going to be able to contribute, who are going to be able to help bring their countries forward, themselves forward. That's an extraordinary thing to think about, and I think that is going to be one of the most remarkable changes that's going to happen in the coming decade. So that's it. So that's kind of your primer on exponential thinking. Hopefully it's given you a little bit of an insight into Ray's laws of accelerating returns and what exponential thinking is all about, and abundance. And really, kind of most importantly, how critical it is to become an information technology. Really, you should all be thinking about, how do I become an information technology? How do I become a software company if you're a GE so that you can really thrive in this next era?